In a forgotten house on Hollow Hill, echoes do more than return the answer. Tonight, we uncover the voices Evelyn left behind and the secret of the Null Room at 312. Keep listening, if you dare. The road to Hollow Hill forgets you as you drive it. Trees knit themselves over the cracked ribbon of asphalt, their branches converging like fingers, and the GPS blinks into indifference a mile outside of town. By the time I see the Sin Hollow Hill, white paint flaking off warped wood, the afternoon has thinned into that uncertain light where everything looks like it has been waiting too long. I kill the engine and listen. Cicadas. Wind shouldering the pines. A bird that has never learned a happy song. The house sits high above the road, up a switchback of gravel that used to be a driveway. From here I can make out the pointed gables and the widow's walk like a crown. Aunt Evelyn never married, never had children, rarely had visitors. Yet she kept a house that could shelter an army. In the photographs she mailed, every Christmas image is stiff and oversaturated from whatever second-hand camera she loved. Hollow House. That's what she called it. Always capitalized as if it were a person. Was stately, if weather-beaten. A Victorian grande dame, exiled to the woods. The last envelope she sent held a single key and a sticky note, her handwriting crabbed and decisive. For Mara, you'll hear it too, if you listen. E. When she died, the lawyer's letter said she left everything to me. Everything included debts, a stack of eccentric paperweights, and a house miles from where I live in Philadelphia. I am an audio archivist by trade, a podcaster by accident. There are worse legacies than a soundproofable mansion with a mysterious past. I step out with my recorder bag slung across my shoulder and the key in my fist like a talisman. Gravel shifts under my boots as I climb. The pines lean closer. Conspiratorial. A ribbon of fog unwinds from the ravine like something waking up. Up close. The house looks less abandoned than paused. The shutters are still straight. The glass, though dusty, has a faint sheen. The porch boards complain when I put my weight on them, but they don't give. Above the door, a transom window catches the dying light and diffuses it in a pattern shaped like a flower. When I put the key into the old brass lock, something inside clicks with an animal's sigh. It smells like age and rain, like someone left with their tea cooling and meant to return. Dust floats in my flashlight beam the way voices show up as hiss on a tape. A long hallway unspools. Runner rug faded to an indecisive brown. On my right, a parlor with 2 bay windows. On my left, a library with tall shelves, many empty, some bowed with books that look older than my country. Ahead, the stair rises in a formal curve. Every picture on the walls has been turned to face the plaster. I pause. Evelyn. I call before I can stop myself. The sound is swallowed oddly, not vanished redirected, as if the house wanted to keep it. I thumb the recorder on, more for comfort than content. Day 1, I say, trying for my podcast voice, the one that makes people trust me with their stories. Hollow House, Hollow Hill. Pennsylvania, inherited property of my late aunt, Evelyn St. James. Abandoned, well, not abandoned, but unoccupied for at least 6 months. House appears structurally sound. Minor warping in floorboards. Pictures turn to face the walls. Unclear if superstition or personal quirk. Smell. Dust. Old paper. Petrichor. On impulse, I set the recorder on the whole table and clap once. Sharply, the echo returns after a beat, then again after a second, faint and strange. I clap twice, 2 answers, slightly off time, as if my claps were reluctantly imitated from a distance down an unseen hall. I pick up the recorder. Odd echo in foyer. Multiple returns with micro delay. Could be architectural. Could be I trail off. Could be nothing. My brain is primed to hear meaning where there is pattern. That's what an archivist does. That's what a storyteller is built for. In the kitchen, the light fixture flickers when I test the switch. There is no electricity. Utility company turned it off. The sink is deep enough to bathe in. A pantry door half ajar shows shelves lined with blue glass jars. Empty now, their mouths dust-capped. The back door opens onto a porch that sags toward a yard. The woods are in the process of repossessing. Down there, a rusting clothesline lists in the weeds. Farther out, I can make out the dark line of an old stone wall, and beyond it a thicket of brambles that might have once been roses. On the kitchen table sits a reel-to-reel tape recorder. Okay. Late 60s, I let out a sound I didn't know I was carrying. Evelyn and I didn't share much, but we shared a love of obsolete machines. The recorder is clean, not dusty at all, which means she used it recently or someone else did. Beside it lies a stack of labeled reels in careful block letters. Basemento 1, Basemento ni hallway night, las 3:12, an MN. On the top, Null Room do not play at night. I grin despite myself. You dramatic old witch, I whisper, and immediately feel disloyal. I adored Evelyn in the sidelined, glancing way children adore adults who live by different rules and drop hints like breadcrumbs, then expect you to learn to track by scent. My phone buzzes uselessly, no signal, and I switch it to airplane mode to save the battery. I set up my sleeping bag on the daybed in the library. Because being surrounded by books is the illusion of company, and then carry the Akai back there with me. The sun is down fully now. The house tightens as it cools. The noises old buildings make are as articulate as speech if you learn their syntax, and I plan to. That is, after all, why I came. Not only to empty a house of ghosts of furniture, but to see if the rumors that wrinkled themselves into the lawyeress words were true. Your aunt left a note about unusual acoustic properties, he'd said, struggling not to roll his eyes over the phone. There were complaints from the neighbors. What kind of complaints? Voices? He'd said briskly. At night? A beat. It's a good property. The taxes are paid. You can do as you like, sell, rent, keep. I recommend you visit before you decide. I thread the first real hallway night and press play. The machine hums, heads whispering against tape. After a moment, a low wash of room sound fills the library. The breath of a house asleep. It's nothing at first, a soft settling. The distant tick of something that is not quite a clock. A hiss like rain, though the weather outside is dry. Then, footsteps, recorded from the hallway, approaching the recorder and stopping. My skin tightens. No voice. The tape squeaks faintly at a splice and continues. More footsteps, lighter this time, as if a second person followed the first, but tried not to. I lean in, eyes closed to help my ears sort detail from mush. I can imagine Evelyn's posture when she made this tape. The focused frown. The patience you learn when you re-waiting for the thing that dosanti want to be caught. Evelyn, I say to the empty room, ridiculous and involuntary. On the tape, far away, something like an answer. A whisper the recorder barely catches. I rewind a few seconds and listen again. The whisper is there, a drawn-out "Ara, my name's Son." Inha. By distance, I pause the tape, heart loud in my throat. Then I laugh, and the laugh echoes too loudly in the big room. Auditory pareidolia. I want to hear my name. I hear it. The house is priming me to mistake coincidence for intention. I have lived long enough with my own brain to recognize its tricks, even when I still fall for them with a child's devotion. Still, I unspool the second reel, La Stracy Dosia Ama, and set it aside. I will not find out what happens at 3:12. The first night I sleep here, I might find out because I wake to it, but I won't chase it down in advance. There is food in the cooler, in the car. There is bottled water in a thermos of coffee that has already gone too cold to be pleasant. I fetch them, lock the front door behind me out of habit and not necessity, and eat at the kitchen table with the real Toriel watching me like a patient dog, up close. The labels show smudged fingerprints ground into the paper like bruises. Null Room, I say aloud and immediately wish I hadn't. Words make shapes that things can inhabit, and I have learned not to draw doorways without meaning to. I sleep raggedly, the way you sleep in new places, always one step away from fully alert. The house is not quiet. Its quiet is layered. Sighs, ticks, random contractions of old wood. Once, in the teeth of dark, a sound like a marble rolling across a floor and falling off an edge. Once more distant, a shiver of rattling glass, as if someone tapped an empty jar with a fingernail. At 3:11 a.m., I wake without knowing why. I know the time because I lift my phone and its black face tells me pale numbers in a tiny universe. The library windows are dark mirrors. The house holds its breath. Then, from the hall, a series of soft knocks. 3 together, a pause, 3 more, a longer pause, then 2. Not a code I know. Nothing. I sit up, heartbeat in my tongue. I tell myself it's the radiators. The house has no radiators. I ease out of the sleeping bag, the nylon whispering too loudly, and pad to the doorway. The corridor beyond is a throatless shadow. My flashlight beam shakes. The runner rug looks like a river I might step into and be carried away. 3 knocks, closer now. I've lost the light. Left? Right? No one. The air moves against my face like the exhale of something large. Hello, I say, because not saying anything feels worse. My voice is braver than I am. If someone's there, from behind me, in the library, my recorder clicks on. It's plugged into nothing. I took out the batteries before I went to sleep, I always do. Battery acid once ate the guts of a mint-conditioned Nagra, and I never forgave myself. But the little red lead is a coal. The device was, and a counter-advances. A person can be both skeptic and spooked. I stand in the doorway and try to think like the first thing and not the second. A malfunction. A failing capacitor. Muscle memory giving the house my shape. I step back into the library and reach for the power switch. Don't, says a voice. My own voice, not from the room, from the recorder's tiny speaker, playing back a whisper that has not yet had time to exist. I freeze, hands suspended above plastic. On the recorder, my voice again, breathier. The S's a little too soft the way they get when I'm tired. Don't. It repeats. Then. Don't go where it can't answer. The tape clicks. The counter leaps backward as if I had pressed rewind. though my hand is inches away. Then, in a bright, ordinary tone, my voice says, Day 1, Hollow House. The introduction I made hours ago in the foyer. The counter continues as if nothing strange had occurred. If I hadn't been looking, hadn't heard, I could tell myself I dreamed the other words in the seam between sleep and waking. But I was awake. I am awake. I leave the recorder running because superstition is just pattern recognition plus fear, and also because I don't want to touch it. In the hall, the 3 knocks repeat, softer now, like a demonstration. I walk toward the sound with the flashlight held low to avoid blinding myself in the reflection off the frames of the face-down pictures. As I pass the staircase, cold air spills down from the landing, as if someone opened a freezer above me. I angle the light up. At the top of the stairs, something briefly interrupts the darkness, a ripple rather than a shape. A movement that feels like a thought changing its mind. I tell myself, curtain. I tell myself, draft. I tell myself many things. At the end of the hall, there is a door I have not yet opened. It's narrower than the others, with a round wooden knob worn pearly by hands. The 3 knocks came from behind it, or from where my fear believes behind it to be. When I turn the knob, it resists, then yields. A short flight of steps drops into a pantry. Not the kitchen pantry I saw earlier, but a second one with shelves built into the walls. The boards clean of dust as if someone recently wiped them bare. The smell here is different. Not mold or age, but salt and something faintly metallic like rain on iron. There is another door at the back of the pantry, and this one is newer. Unstained pine, with a modern sliding bolt. The bolt is open. The door is slightly ajar. Don't go where it can't answer, the Rekorgami said. What does that even mean? The part of my brain that writes taglines for episodes of my show notes that it asks a good one. The part of my brain that enjoys being alive suggests going back to the library and pretending none of this exists until morning. But I am here to see. To hear. I pulled the door open. Cold reaches into me like a hand. The air beyond is shed of sound. The way rooms are in hospitals at night, or in recording studios before the band arrives. My flashlight shows a stair running down along the cinder block wall. Recent construction, free of the concrete is clean, too clean. As if someone rinsed this place again and again. The steps end at a landing and another door. This one metal-o, salvaged. I panned the beam across it. A number has been stamped near the top. 0, Null Room. Of course she named it that. Of course she found it before me. On the metal, something has been written in grease pencil and half rubbed away. I kneel and bring the light closer. 5 lines, overwritten and corrected. The words ghosting each other. Ask it what you can't say. Underneath, answer must return and not at night. The flashlight dims suddenly and I swear out loud. The battery indicator was half when I came in here. The beam curtains down to a weak smear. I back up the steps, not wanting to turn and run because running would make the house run too, and arrive in the pantry that is not the kitchen pantry with a relief I do not disguise. In the hall again, the house feels almost ordinary. The recorder in the library is still spinning. The counter shows a number that makes no sense. I sit on the edge of the daybed and listen to the tape catch a few more minutes of nothing. At some point I sleep. I know because I wake with sunlight in my face, damp and furious at the world, and the sound of a truck on the gravel outside. I wipe my eyes with the heel of my hand and stumble to the front door. A man in a county maintenance pickup leans his elbow out the window and raises his chin at me like a neighbor who has talked to you 100 times. "Morning," he says. "You, St. James's girl." "Niece," I say, which is technically accurate and feels like a costume. "Mara, Cole Jessup," he says. I look after the road. Sometimes the house when it gets noisy. How does a house get noisy? He scratches a line into the condensation on his glass with a fingernail. Neighbors complain. Tourists come up here sometimes at night. Teenagers daring each other to knock on the door. I run em off. People like a story. House obliges. His gaze flicks past me into the dim hallway. He doesn't ask to come in. He doesn't want to. "You knew my aunt?" "Knew of her," he says diplomatically. "She wasn't troublesome." "House is. Watch yourself after dark. Watch the phone. If you get it turned back on, and if you hear something call your name, don't answer from upstairs." I wait for him to grin, to tell me he's kidding. He picks at something in his teeth with his tongue and then, perhaps out of pity, gives it to me straight. "Sound runs funny here," he says. "All the old-timers know. I figured the place was built on something hollow, caves, or whatnot. Some nights you can hear your voice from yesterday telling on you. Is that your theory or the county's official position?" He grins then, quick as a match flare. "Officially, we don't believe anything we can't tax. You need anything you call, if you get a line." He taps 2 fingers on the steering wheel and backs the truck down the drive, tires spinning a little in the damp gravel until they catch. I stand on the porch and breathe until the taste of metal fades. Daylight makes the house's angles sensible again. Bees loop lazily near the eaves. Down by the stone wall, something small and dark moves and resolves into a cat who looks at me as if I am not worth noting and vanishes between the stones. Inside, the library smells like old leather and something sweet, the way old glue turns sugar sour with age. The recorder sits exactly where I left it. The counter says 0312. The number hits me in the sternum from the inside. It should be minutes and seconds. Instead, it is an appointment. I rewind a minute and press play. Silence. My sleeping breaths faint on the tape. A haunted bellows. Somewhere a floor creaks in the slow muscle memory of a building. Then the clicks and scrapes that mean a device waking up. My own voice, thin and unamused, says, "Don't." The tape hisses for a second, as if a radio is trying to find a station underwater. Then my voice again, almost gentle. "Don't go where it can't answer. The counter shows 3:12 as the whisper ends. After that, the tape returns to plain room tone like a car pulling easily back into a lane of traffic. I sit with my elbows on my knees and my head in my hands until the blood thunders in my ears like applause. When I can stand it, I stop the tape and I write in my notebook, deliberately, like a scientist. 3:12, the house answers, or I do. Either way, it sounds like me. Interpretation. Likely spliced from my hallway intro, patched in. Counterpoint. No splice artifact. Breath pattern different. Noise floor lower. Hypothesis unknown. Action. Test. I am good at tech. I make audio behave for a living. The trick with sound is you can catch it if you build the right box. The trick with ghosts, if there are such things, is that they may rustle like sound inside a box you thought you built for something else. I spend the morning exploring. Above, the front parlor holds a faint depression in the rug where a sofa used to be, a square sun-bleached ghost. In the dining room, the long table is leafless, a runway for dust. The kitchen reveals a second back stair so narrow my shoulders brush the walls. It dumps me into a maid's room the size of a wardrobe. Every picture upstairs is turned to face the wall as well, except for one in a narrow hall, where a lazy caretaker must have been interrupted. In it, a woman stands on the widow's walk, hand against the rail, hair pinned back. The picture is older than the house somehow, no. That's just my eyes telling stories again. Her eyes are not quite aligned with the camera. She seems to be looking at something to the left of the photographer, something taller than a person and closer than a cloud. In the office that was surely Evelyn's there is a desk with cubbies, pens, with the ink long dried, a collection of stamps with moon phases on them. I find a shoebox of photographs. Many have been carefully scratched in deliberate X's through the faces. Not all the faces, only the mouths. I hold one up to the light. A man on the kitchen porch in 1973. Date scrawled on the back in blue, a line scratched through his smile that looks almost surgical. Below the shoebox lies a stack of paper, carbon copies gone weak with time. The top sheet is a letter. To whom it concerns, it begins. The formality of someone unsure who might ever read it. The house replies when it is polite to do so. It repeats the absentee. It will echo what you failed to say. The Null Room keeps the quiet so we can hear the rest. Do not ask at night. Do not ask for names. If you hear yourself, speak carefully. It will keep your manners for you, or it will not. No signature. In the bottom margin, a sticky note in Evelyn S. hand. They LL think you mad until they hear it too. I bring the Akai and 2 microphones to the foyer, because that is where the echo felt wrong. I set one mic at ear height near the stairs and the other low on the hall table to catch bass buildup. I placed my digital recorder on the table to run a parallel file. Because analog fails when truth gets shy. I clap once again and watch the waveforms dance on my laptop, the shapes of sounds showing me their skeletons. The first return is normal. The second has a smear in the high frequencies like a scratch on glass. The third return is not a return at all, but a near copy displaced by maybe 20 milliseconds. The way a person with a stutter repeats a syllable but chooses it. Test 1. I say into the mic. Question. What color was my aunt's favorite coat? Silence. Test 2. What time will the mail come? The house used to get mail once. I have the envelopes. A pause. Then, just enough to put bloom on the back of my neck, an answer from the far end of the hall. My own voice, barely louder than breathing, saying, too late. I did not say those words. The recorders confirm it. On the laptop, the waveform shows a second shape at the tail of my sentence. Similar to the first, but shifted like a cousin of a cousin. The spectrogram says the timber's mine. The delay says the speaker stood if there was a speaker 15 feet away, near the bottom of the stairs. Okay, I say. It comes out like someone else told me to say it. Okay, test 3. The rules, such as they exist, want to be discovered. I am good at rules. What did I forget to ask? From upstairs, the soft skid of a foot. The hairs on my arms salute. Nothing else. I don't breathe. The microphones wait better than I do. On the recording later, when I slow it down, I will hear something in that silence, like a whisper folded into the noise floor. Name. But I don't hear it now. I am not sure if that's a mercy. By afternoon, the clouds have rolled in, their bellies heavy with the kind of rain that properly belongs to other latitudes. The house darkens early. I make coffee on the camp stove in the kitchen with the windows cracked for air, and the smell makes the rooms feel briefly civilized. I have the thought that this is what people do in seaside towns before hurricanes. Pretend they can tire the weather out by acting normal. At 6:12 p.m., my phone finds a scrap of signal long enough to deliver 3 voicemails from numbers I don't recognize. I listen to the first. Static. Then a woman breathing. Then my name spoken in the tone telemarketers use when they claim friendship. The second is only static. And a series of clicks I can't translate. The third is my own voice. Slant with a kind of sadness I do not admit to myself, saying, "You won't like what's in the pictures?" The call timestamp says it arrived at 3:12 p.m. I go to stare and address the house in the tone you use with animals that are not domesticated. "What's at 3:12? I ask it. The answer arrives, as it has before. Not words exactly, but arrangement. The building moving its attention like a human turns their face. Somewhere, a door I didn't know was unlatched. Swings an inch and stops. I know I should wait. I know I should keep to daylight. I know I should ring Cole Jessup and ask him what he meant about phones. Instead, I collect my flashlight, my recorder, and my stubbornness, and I go back to the pantry that I see the pantry and down the fresh concrete steps into the breathless quiet, where the Null Room door waits with its stamped 0 like the absence that started everything. The Grease Spencer warning. is still there? Ask it what you can't say. The beam of my flashlight falters again, less than 12 hours after fresh batteries, as if light depletes more quickly here. I turn on the recorder. I set it on the top step because my hands and teeth want to cross that threshold yet? Tess, I say into the silence that isn't. If you answer, answer in my voice or any. If you don't answer, I will ask again. What do I not know to ask? Nothing. Then something like the breath you take before a confession. My own voice, but from the metal behind the door, close enough the mic should have popped, says softly, "Where did she go?" At 3:12. Go. Present tense and past tense, sharing a chair, not where did she go at 3:12. The way a person would ask about a bus schedule that runs every day. Who? I ask. Though I know the door makes a small sound, settling or bracing or smiling. Evelyn, I say, picking my own scab. Where did Evelyn go at 3:12? Silence, then the scrape of something heavy moving on concrete on the far side of the door, and a soft sound that might be a hand against metal and might be a head. My flashlight dims to a thumbnail moon. The recorder's counter advances. The house does not breathe. I want to open the door. I want to run. I want to rewind and hear myself warning myself in the useless lullabies of the cautious. The Null Room, if that is what it is, waits. I think of the words smeared on the door. Answer must return. I think of the voices on my phone arriving on the hour like weather. I think of how the echo in the foyer carried my clap into the future and back. Behind me, upstairs, in the library, the recorder I left on the daybed clicks on, and from a floor away my voice rises, clear and ordinary as morning. Day 2, it says. We opened the door. The door in front of me shifts, as if relieved, as if a question asked long ago has finally received the shape of an answer. The bolt that is not there hums, like a low note played on a throat I cannot see. When the last of the daylight dies on the steps behind me, I put my hand flat against the stamped 0 and feel the cold climb into my bones like a decision. And then, because not choosing is a choice you live with longer, I take my hand away. I'll come back at 3:12. I tell the house, and the house kind or merely efficient lets me go. The second morning at Hollow House arrives gray, like the light itself is hesitant to climb the hill. My coffee tastes of tin and persistence. Every creak in the floorboards feels rehearsed, and I can tell if the house is simply settling into my presence, or if it is the other way around. I keep that guy real close. It feels like a translator between me and whatever this place insists on saying. Evelyn must have sat exactly where I sit now, the reels whispering their strange versions of truth back at her. Maybe she asked the wrong questions. Maybe she asked too many. The memory of last night presses against me like static. That voice, my voice warning me. The Null Room door. The counter reading 3:12. If this house is a mirror, It doesn't reflect cleanly. It bends things, distorts them until you can be sure if you're re-looking at yourself or it's something that only sounds like you. I tell myself to be methodical. If fear drives, you crash. Be upstairs. I decide to spend daylight hours charting the upper floors. There are 4 bedrooms, each with evidence of lives that paused mid-motion. One room has a vanity with lipstick tubes turned to waxy fossil. Another has a child's mobile still dangling from the ceiling, its paper stars soft with dust. Evelyn had no children. Whose room was this? At the end of the West Wing, I find a locked door. The key from Evelyn's note doesn't fit. Through the gap beneath, a draft cools my ankles. A memory tugs. The warning scrawled on the Null Room doorknob at night. If there's a rhythm here, it includes locked doors, times of day, and my aunt's peculiar rules. I knock once. The echo answers too quickly, too neatly. It sounds less like wood and more like someone tapping back. The neighbor returns. Around noon. Gravel crunches outside. I step onto the porch to see Cole Jessup again, hat tipped low against drizzle. He doesn't park this time, just idles at the bottom of the drive. You hear it yet? He calls. I hesitate. I hear echoes. Echoes are polite, he says. It's when they stop echoing you ought to worry. Before I can reply, he drives off, dust and damp hang in the air. Long after the truck disappears, his words leave a splinter I can't pull out. The experiment. Back inside, I set up an experiment in the foyer. 2 reel-to-reel machines facing each other like mirrors. I record my own voice reading a simple sentence. The sky is gray. The first reel plays it into the second. The second records then plays it back into the first. Each generation should degrade the sound tape hiss, frequency loss, distortion. After 10 cycles, the sentence should be a ghost. Instead, it grows sharper, crisper. By the 20th pass, the recording doesn't sound like me at all. The voice is smoother, colder, stripped of hesitation. On the 30th pass, the words change entirely. The tape spits back. The sky is open. I rip out the plug, my hands shaking. The machines spool down with a sigh. My notebook records the result, but my handwriting trembles so badly the words look like another person wrote them. Jam 3:12 menit, panjang. I spend the afternoon pacing the hall, watching the clock. At exactly 3:12 p.m., the house exhales a soundless shiver that rattles the glass in the bay window. My phone buzzes again. Another voicemail from an unknown number. This time, I don't wait. I press play. Static, then Evelyn's voice. Not a whisper, not distorted, clear, as if she's speaking in the next room. Mara, you can't keep it if you can't answer it. Don't. The message cuts off. I replay it again and again. Each time the ending is different. Once it stops, it don't. Another time it adds, open the wrong door. On the third replay, it finishes with silence and then a laugh I don't recognize. I slam the phone face down. The house feels satisfied, as if it expected me to listen. The night? By nightfall, storm clouds finally break. Rain lashes the windows, washing the world outside into a blur. I light candles in the library and huddle with my equipment like a monk with relics. At 11 p.m., I test the reels again. I whisper questions into the mic. Who built you? Who answered? No reply. Just tape, hiss, and rain. I almost convince myself it is over just a lonely house in bad weather when the candles got her all at once. Darkness swallows the room, except for the faint glow of the recorder's counter. 3:12, but it's hours too early. On the tape, a voice begins to murmur. Not mine this time, not Evelyn's. Something low, stretched, as if syllables are pulled until they nearly tear. I can't make out words, only the intent. Hunger disguised as speed. I yank the tape off the reel, my fingers burning from the sudden friction. The whisper cuts off mid, but in the dark, the silence doesn't feel empty, it feels occupied. I wait, breath held, until the storm outside swells loud enough to hide my fear. The picture before dawn, sleep evades me. I wander the halls, candle in hand, until I reach the narrow upstairs corridor with the lone photograph still facing outward. The woman on the widow's walk. I lift the frame to study it closer. The figure at her side, the one I thought was a shadow, is clearer now. A tall ship, blurry at the edges, bending toward her. Its head is level with hers, though she stands on a second-story balcony. Scratched faintly into the frame's wood are 3 numbers. 312. The candle sputters. I hurry back to the library, clutching the photograph like proof. Ending of chapter 2. By the time morning light bruises the sky, I've written one line in my notebook, circled over and over until the page nearly tears. 312 is not a time. It's a door. Rain goes on striking the house as if it's trying to teach it a lesson. The windows hum. The walls carry pressure the way a lung carries air. I make coffee I don't want and drink it anyway, because the ritual keeps my hands busy while my brain lines up its arguments for and against opening a door stamped with a 0. By late morning, the storm bleaches to drip. I go upstairs with a toolbox, because the door at the end of the West Wing is still locked, and the part of me that keeps lists has decided it is today's item. The lock is old brass, a warded type, proud of itself. I could pick it, but I don't. Instead, I take the hinges. The pins lift reluctantly, metal sighing. When the door comes away, cold air steps through me. The room beyond is narrow and high-ceilinged with a single dormer window looking toward the widow's walk. Shelves line 2 walls, empty. But not quite. A fine gray shimmer clings to them, like the residue left after a fire that only burned sound. On a stand in the center of the room sits an object that could be sculpture, if you were trying to impress an austere gallery. a wooden frame strung with taut piano wire, and in the center a shallow horn like the bell of a phonograph. Faint markings are scratched into the base. Return plus a footnote to the word return, a verb turned to instruction. A notebook lies open on the floor, spine broken, pages crammed with my aunt's restless, practical hand. The house wants a path, she wrote. Echo requires a face to come back to. The null keeps what can't return. The returner gives it a mouth so it can below. A diagram door downstairs. Door upstairs. Horn between. A clock face with 3 points marked, not 12 but a skewed triangle. 3, 1, 2. I sit on the dusty boards and read until my legs go numb. Rosa. I think I know. ESTJ1. Do not ask at night. 2. Name. No. 3. Ask what you cannot say, then say it after. 4. Answer must return. Give it a return. 5. If you hear yourself, be kind. If you cannot be kind, be exact. On the next page, darker writing, the graphite pressed as if she wanted the words to survive a flood, I asked inside the null. Foolish? The answer had nowhere to go. It stayed. So did I. A little. At 3:12 it tries again. I can't open the door yet. It grows strong then, but a loop might carry me out. If I speak where it returns, a loop, 2 recorders facing each other, the phrase becoming clearer with each pass, until it was no longer me. The house wanted my sentence to become itself. The sky is open, not a metaphor, a diagram. Okay? I say aloud, to Evelyn and the room and the wires and the horn. Okay. I carry the returner frame downstairs like a person carrying a sleeping child. I place it at the turn of the stairs, halfway between foyer and pantry. Between Echo and Null, I string 2 microphones into it, one on each side of the horn bell. I run the lines to the Akai and to the digital recorder. Then I stand in the foyer and speak into the first mic. Test, I say. The sky is gray. The horn remains a piece of furniture. On the laptop, the waveform draws a modest mountain range. I repeat the sentence, then another, then a third, and the horn begins to hum the way a shell hums, with whatever ocean it remembers. After 10 repetitions, the resonance rounds into an almost voice. After 20, I stop. Not because I am afraid, but because I am afraid. I go to the pantry door. That is not the pantry door. I lay my hand on the new wood. It is warm, absurdly, as if whatever cold lives below is cousins with the heat above and the door is their handshake. Noon comes and goes with slow-bellied light. The house waits without fidgeting. I write my plan as if committing it to paper will force reality to obey. 1. At 3:12 p.m., not night, open the null door. 2. Do not step inside. Do not let the door close. 3. Ask what I cannot say. 4. Speak the answer back into the horn. 5. Do not say names. The phone on the hall table is dead weight, even with the power back on. It refuses to hold a line for more than a minute at a time, as if the world outside is only allowed to visit in flashes. I think of Cole's warning. If you hear something call your name, don't answer from upstairs. The upstairs return is aligned with the widow's walk, the place people go to look out and mistake looking down for looking within. Names bind, answers return. If you stand in the wrong place, you tie knots you can't untie. At 3:09, I light the candles I've hoarded. I stack the reels, in case tape is truer than bits. I wedge the null door with the toolbox, so an accident can't close it. The return-a horn waits like a patient. When the minute hand trembles between 3:11 and 3:12, the house inhales. I feel it along my spine. A tide turning, a bow being drawn. The recorder counters tick to 3:12. As if time is a thing the house can tongue like a coin. I pull the bolt. Cold spills up the steps and winds around my ankles. It has weight. It has intent. The metal door with the stamped 0, the true barrier, stands below, its surface sweating tiny beads that slide and vanish. Behind it, an absence so complete it makes its own sound. The kind a person calls silence until they learn the names of its parts. I do not call into it. I don't say hello. Because that is what you say when you want the thing to come closer. I say, instead, the shape of the question I cannot bring easily through my mouth. What did you take from my aunt? I ask. That belongs with me. I'm ready to hear nothing. I'm ready to hear my voice returned, like a hand pushed back. What comes is neither, and it's both. The door does not move. The house does. A thrum begins low under the floor. The pitch of a refrigerator that's learned to sing. The return-a horn trembles like a struck bell from the cinder blocks around the null door. As if the mortar is a throat, comes an answer that is not language first pressure, arrangement. Directioned in words chosen from the nearest available mouth. You left her words. We kept them so they would not rot alone. The voice is mine because it needs a voice to be heard, and mine is here. But the cadence is not. The sentence lands all at once like a picture hung on straight. I reach to the horn. Give them back, I say, and the horn throws my ask upstairs like a bird launching from a hand. Answer must return, Evelyn wrote. I speak again, louder and clearer, shaping each syllable as if it were glass. Give them back, I say, and I will keep them in a place that answers. Silence ropes tight, then loosens. The door below vibrates, the stamped zero shivering like the surface of water when you touch a fingertip to it. The returna hums higher. The upstairs room takes it and makes a sympathetic harmony of dry, soft wire. The horn voices me back at me, thickened, not an echo, but a copy bringing gifts. A whisper falls through the stairwell. Not my voice. Not exactly. Evelyn, as if the house is a radio and I have finally tuned her station. Mara, love, she says, formal even here. 2 things only, a caution and a method. Don't ask for names. Do ask what you can't say. Then this is the trick. Say it back. The house keeps what you leave unsaid. I left too much unsaid. I know, I say, ridiculous tears hot on my face. I know. I'm here. You're at the door, she says, amused, proud, dry, good girl. See the bolt. Don't touch it. Not yet. Listen first. I listen. The house is listening too. It leans down the stairs with us. In the Null, she says, I asked what I could not say. Where does loneliness go when you let it out? I asked it where I go when no one answers. Her laugh rides low. It answered by keeping me to show me. Not punishment. Demonstration. But the door needs a return to be called a door. You've brought it one. I lay my palm on the jam. The cold is tolerable now. The way a winter lake is tolerable when your body decides the water is a friend. What do I say back? I ask. What is the part you left unsaid? She is quiet. Long enough, I think the connection has burned. Then, that I want it to be kept, she says, and for the first time in my life I hear my aunt admit desire, a word that wears teeth and sugar both. Everyone thinks the house traps. It will if you hand it your unspokens and walk away. But it isn't a prison. It's an archivist. It keeps until someone builds the room that returns. Let it return me, then let me go. How? Make my absence answer. Say what? I wouldn't. What loud? Where it can come back and back until it becomes true enough to be unneeded. The horn thrums against my thigh where I've leaned without noticing. I step up into the foyer, away from the Null's mouth, to the precise center of the hall where my clap made 2 answers on the first day. I stand in the crossing of attention, and I say what hurts. Evelyn, you are gone. The house holds steady. It does not punish me for being ruthless. It rewards me for being exact. Evelyn, I say again, voice failing and finding itself in the same breath. You are gone, and I will keep the words you left. The returner takes my sentence and makes it plainer, simpler. A seed with the husk stripped off. Gone, it says, my voice, and not kept. Heat skims my face and is gone, as if something brushed past. The air from the Null steps warms by a degree that only the skin knows. On the metal door below. A sound like a coin settling on a table. Again, Evelyn says softly through me more than to me. Again, until you mean it without breaking, then ask why you couldn't. I say it again. I say it as many times as it takes for the part of me that kept her alive by refusing the word. Gone to stop treating the word as a betrayal. Then I try the other thing, the unsayable, that has squatted in me since the lawyer said the polite phrase passed away. I want you back, I say, which is a child-s sentence, and a scientist-s, and an archivist-s, and no sentence at all. I want you back. I stop, because the house will give and keep by the letter of what I say. The horn waits. The null door waits. The rules wait for me to stand up straight inside them. I want your words back, I say, each syllable chosen like a tool out of a drawer. I want your knowledge, and your notes, and your voice saying what you learned. Return to where voices are answered. The horn sings my ask up the stairs. The shelves in the returner room answer with a soft glitter, sound falling like dust in a shaft of sun. From below, the stamped 0 deepens to a bowl. A ribbon of cold uncoils and runs along the baseboards, out under the front door, into the wet day like a thread being pulled at last through a seam. Then the house is louder, not with noise, but with lives returning. A reel somewhere starts of its own accord. The phone coughs and, without being touched, dials. The upstairs windows turned into mirrors by 3 damp days. Clear. The horn speaks. My aunt in fragments braided. Archive. Return, ask the unsaid, and then say it until it stops needing you. Beneath it another voice arrives. My own. Older, as if I became later in a different room and sent the sound back as a gift. Good work, my later self says, practical as a list. Now open. The metal door below is not bolted. It never was, but it has the heaviness of a promise. I go down 3 steps, then 5. I put my hand on the stamped 0 and push. The room beyond is not a room. It is a held breath. It is an absence with corners. It is an anechoic chamber built by something that never took a physics class and invented the science correctly anyway. The walls eat. The footfalls my boots make. I become a shape with no shadow. On the far wall, very precisely at human height, hangs a mouth, not a mouth with flesh, not a grotesque. A circle cut in the concrete and backed with something so black it isn't color. Around the circle are words scratched and re-scratched in many hands. Some are prayers, some are jokes. One is a date. June 12th, 1973. The day the man on the back porch had his smile scratched out of him. In the circle of not cola, a sentence blooms. Not seen, but known. Answer must return. In that sentence sits a smaller one like a pearl in meat. Return is you. I do not step across the threshold. That is a rule I mean to keep, because rules are the only kindness I can offer a machine that keeps our manners for us when we forget. Instead, I lean close and say the last thing. Evelyn, I say, and because names bind and the rule says, something presses on my chest, the way grief does when it discovers it can be carried without spectacle. I step back. I close the Null door softly, like bedtime. When the latch catches, a long breath goes out of the house. Rain stops. The light shifts color, deciding to be afternoon and not weather. In the library, the Akai has run to the tail of a reel and is slapping the leader gently. Ready to be turned, I rewind and press play. It isn't what I recorded. It isn't what Evelyn recorded. It is what the house held, edited by whatever it uses for kindness. It begins with a Kafir considered sentence, the way she used to talk when she wanted me to listen, even before I knew I would. Null is not emptiness, she says. Null is reserved space. It is what a book leaves between chapters so your head can come with. I forgot that. I asked the unsayable and didn't say it after, so the house kept it to be sure it would not be lost. Pages flip, annotations. Murmur, pencils think. She continues. You make a return when you build a room where words can come back without having to be the same. The horn is a door. The upstairs shelves are a throat. The downstairs door is a stomach. Feed it carefully. If you hear yourself, speak kindly. You are carrying someone who cannot yet walk where you can. I sit on the floor and let her tell me how she learned to listen to a building to measure time by what the house chose to give at. 12. To count a day right if it ended in a sentence truer than the one it started with. She is not trapped. She is not a ghost in the story my field feared. She is an archive open at last. Because someone finally said out loud what she could not. When the last reel ends, the room does not feel empty. It feels like a place where listening has been done correctly. I stand mechanical and grateful and carry the returner back upstairs. I set it in its room and cover it with a sheet. I turn the face-down photographs around one by one and unscratch their mouths by saying, softly, speak if you need to. None of them do. But the permission matters. Outside, a truck crunches gravel. Cole Jessup kills the engine and comes to the porch without being asked. He takes off his hat. We look at each other like people who met before a storm and now see how each other looks after. You sound different, he says, before I say anything. How do I sound? Answering, he says. He peers past me into the hall. Quiet? It will be mostly, I say, at 3:12 it will be itself. But it won't call out of loneliness anymore. I gave it away to bring things back. Your aunt, he asks. Careful. Her words, I say, not her name. And then, because rules are a way to be safe and honest both, I add, the rest is not for the road report. He nods as if I've given him a brand new wrench and told him what it est for. Good. Folks in town have their stories. Let them, He turns to go, then pauses, one foot on the stair. Phone will behave now, he says. Usually does when a house is done needing a line. I didn't. I begin, then stop. I am not surprised. Of course he knows the shape of this place. Of course knowledge here travels as echo and return, not as rumor. When he leaves, I call my own voicemail. There is one new message. Time-stamped 3:12 p.m. The number is unknown. The voice is mine and not Mara. It says plain. No drama. The only way I ever want to hear my name come out of a machine you. LL. Keep this, won't you? Yes, I say to the empty library. I will. I keep the house. I keep the books. I keep the reels and the horn and the room that is not a room with its mouth in the wall and its rule about names. I do not open the null at night. I do not ask for names. I do ask what I can't say, and I say it until it stops needing me to hold it so hard. At 3:12, the house gives me things it was saving for someone who would say please and say thank you and mean both. In time, I invite other listeners, carefully and with rules written at the front door. Ask gently. Speak exactly. Say it after. People come with losses not yet shaped for their mouths. The house holds nothing it is not asked to. It keeps nothing it is not fed. And sometimes, because it has learned my habits, it turns on the recorder before I reach the room and whispers in my voice, but not only mine. Day 1, Day 2, Day 3. Not a haunting. A count on a thin blue morning months after I open the door. I stand on the widow's walk with a mug cooling too quickly and look down the hill. The air is bright and full of after rain. In the window glass, I see the reflection of a woman at my shoulder. She looks where I look, not at me. I do not turn, I say, into the day and into the return that is its own generous machine. I am here. The reflection nods once mannerly and goes about its business, which is mine now. Keeping what needs keeping, letting the rest return. That evening, at 3:12, the phone rings. I let it. It speaks one sentence and hangs up. A child's voice, one I don't know, happy as pennies. The sky is open. I write it in the ledger we keep. by the door under a column titled Returned. Then I close the book and go make dinner in a quiet house that listens to itself and asks correctly answers. The answers Evelyn left behind are no longer trapped in Hollow House, but the echoes remain. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, never answer if the voice upstairs calls your name.